The year is 43 AD. The Roman Empire is preparing to invade Britain once again. After Gaius Julius Caesar's first invasion in 55 BC and subsequent second invasion in 54 BC, Britain was open to the Roman world. However, as Caesar's invasion failed to secure any new territories for Rome, and only established trade routes as well as tributes to be paid to Rome annually, Britain remained independent, with different tribes ruling part of the Isle. Rome's attention drifted away from Britain over the years, due to civil wars and the transition from republic to empire, under Caesar's adopted heir, Gaius Julius Octavian. Octavian had planned to invade at one point. However, as the largest regional tribe in Britain still paid tributes to Rome, and partly because the empire had to contend with revolts in other parts of its territories, an invasion never materialized. Octavian's plan of invading in his lifetime never came to fruition. It wasn't until 40 AD that the wheels of the empire began turning towards Britain again. The main tribe who controlled the south of Britain, the Trinovantes, had been conquered by a rival tribe, the Cativalonians, whom then ceased to pay the annual tribute which gave Rome its casus belli. The Emperor Caligula attempted an invasion which involved bizarrely lining his men up in a strange formation near the Mare Britannicum, and instead of constructing boats to sail across the channel, demanded his men collect seashells either as some propaganda trophy for the people of Rome, or simply because Caligula was a deranged tyrant. Moving ahead to 43 AD, and a new emperor, Claudius, begins his preparations to invade Britain. The Roman general Aulus Plautius was given command of 4 legions which contained 5,000 men each and 20,000 auxiliary troops consisting of archers, spearmen and cavalry. The main goal of this invasion force was to secure a main city hub for the Romans to use for reinforcements, as well as to bring goods and slaves back to the mainland, as Britain had an abundance of copper and tin mines. In the spring of 43 AD, the Roman army begins to rendezvous near modern-day Calais. After assembling their forces, the Roman army set sail in early spring. This time the Romans came prepared, as during Caesar's last attempt, his ships were so poorly built that they didn't survive the journey along the coast, which left him stranded for a few weeks before being able to sail back to Gaul. The Romans have a reputation for not being the greatest sailors. The Romans landed near Richborough, near Kent. This was the ideal place to land, as Caesar himself had managed to land his troops here 97 years ago. Further evidence of the Romans landing at Richborough were ditches dug by the Romans and a fort near the landing site. As soon as the Romans landed, news reached the various British tribes, whom then organised themselves into a resistance force led by 2 brothers, Caraticus and Agodmus. Caraticus was the leader of the tribe that displaced the loyal Trinovantes tribe from southern Britain. Now, Caraticus was a smart man. He knew fighting the Romans in a set battle would not go well for him, as the Romans preferred to fight this way. One decisive victory was all the Romans needed. Caractacus's plan was to use guerrilla tactics in an effort to wear down the Romans by attacking their supplies. However, this ultimately failed as the Roman soldiers carried their own supplies, so the only option left was to attack in brief skirmishes. However, all of these attacks were beaten back by the Romans, and after falling back further away from Kent, Caraticus stationed his forces near the river Medway, in the hopes of either forcing the Romans to fight in unfavourable terrain, or forcing them to march around the river, giving him more time to gather men and wear down the Romans. The river Medway was an ideal strategic choice to force an army to fight, as at this point in history there were no bridges to cross the river. Now let's see the army layout for the British. The British forces consisted of infantry equipped with light armour. The reasons for equipping themselves in this manner is they preferred to fight light, with some warriors having added blue dye into their bodies, which acted as symbols for protection in battle. There may have been a case of some religious Celts fighting completely nude, but these were most likely berserkers or religious warriors. Most other Celts would have worn light tunics and cloaks into battle, and equipped with a sword and shield, as well as a spear. The British forces also used chariots. Now chariots were a crucial part of the British war machine, used to intimidate their opponents. Each one was normally equipped with 2 riders, one to steer the chariot and the other one to shoot or hurl javelins. Chariots also made fine transports able to get troops to one place quickly in a battle. Disabling these chariots had to be the top priority for the Romans. The Romans reached the River Medway on the 1st of June 43 AD. The general Plautus organised his army into 3 battle groups. The best and most experienced auxiliary unit, the Batavians, were positioned in the centre of the Roman forces, as this unit was the best for river crossings and could maintain formation while crossing. The rest of the auxiliary troops were positioned in reserve, with 4 legions placed at various lengths of the river in a tight structure, directly opposing the British forces on the other side. The British troops were scattered all along the riverbed, being thinly placed to cover any Roman force attempting to cross, as the British could rely on their chariots to carry them to any point of the river if the Romans tried to cross. And remember, the British are trying to stall or halt the Romans from crossing, as Caratacus wanted to avoid fighting the Romans in a pitched battle. The total number of troops for the Romans was 45,000, including legionnaires and auxiliary troops. The British numbers have been stated to be between 100,000 to 150,000. However, Roman sources are known for inflating the numbers of enemy combatants. The battle begins with the auxiliary unit, the Batavians, crossing the river whilst in full gear, something the British didn't expect. After crossing the river, the Batavians charged at the British chariots, catching them completely off guard. This attack decimated the chariots, killing many of their horses, whilst causing a significant morale blow to the rest of the British forces, who were scattered along the riverbed. However, the rest of the British forces soon swarmed at the Batavian unit, yet as most of their horses were killed, it took them longer to reach the Roman position. Plautus then instructed Vespasian to take his legions across and aid the Batavians. Fierce fighting at the riverbed continued throughout the day. Eventually, Vespasian's legions managed to push back the attacking force and create a bridgehead for the rest of the Roman army. Yet, the British troops still held their ground. The fighting continued until nightfall, where the British retreated to higher ground in an effort to reorganise themselves for the next day of fighting. The Romans at the riverbed began to secure the area, whilst the rest of the Roman army crossed the river under the cover of night. By the next day, the Romans' entire army had crossed the river and deployed in their standard battle formation, the triple line formation. The Britons held the high ground and deployed in a defensive 2-line position, hoping to draw the Romans into another long day of fighting. The Romans, not wasting any time, charged up the hill and clashed with the opposing force. The initial charge was so successful that the Britons instantly started to fall back. However, a Roman legate, Gaius Hostinius, pushed too far into the British line and was soon surrounded. Hostinius' legions formed a defensive square in order to stop the British from swarming over them, and thanks to the legion's superior training and equipment, each attack was repelled. And soon enough, the Briton army started to lose heart, which led to a mass rout. In the ensuing retreat, Numerous Britons were killed, as the lack of chariots prevented many from escaping. The British commanders Caraticus and Dagomas managed to flee towards the River Thames, whilst the Romans were in hot pursuit. The two brothers now tried to hold their ground and make a stand before the Romans could reach the ancient capital of the Britons, Camulodunum,